In a landmark ruling that could redefine presidential authority during times of civil unrest, a federal judge has issued a permanent block on the Trump administration's efforts to deploy National Guard troops in Portland, Oregon. This isn't just another headline. It's a clash between executive power and judicial oversight that has been brewing for months amid heated protests. But here's where it gets controversial. Is this a necessary step to restore order? Or an unwarranted federal overreach into local affairs? Stick around, because the details are fascinating and might just change how you view government responses to protests. On November 7, 2025, U.S. District Court Judge Karin Immergut delivered her 106-page decision, effectively halting the deployment of these troops. To understand why this matters, let's rewind a bit. Back in late September, President Trump made a bold announcement. He was sending federal troops to Portland to address what he described as escalating chaos outside a U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement (ICE) facility. This was in direct response to ongoing protests sparked by the administration's strict immigration policies. The Trump team didn't stop there. They federalized 200 Oregon National Guard troops, bringing them under direct federal command, and attempted to deploy an additional 200 from California's National Guard as well. And this is the part most people miss. Federalization means these soldiers shift from state control, where they're usually managed by governors for local emergencies, to federal control, giving the president broader authority over them. But why did Trump invoke such sweeping powers? He leaned on Title 10 of the U.S. Code, a section of federal law that grants the president the ability to mobilize the National Guard under specific circumstances. For beginners wondering what that entails, think of Title 10 as a legal tool designed for extreme situations, like if a foreign invasion is imminent, or if there's a rebellion threatening the government's authority. Specifically, it allows the president to call up Guard members in such numbers as he considers necessary to repel the invasion, suppress the rebellion, or execute those laws when conditions like a rebellion or danger of a rebellion against the authority of the government of the United States are met, or when regular forces aren't enough to uphold federal laws. In this case, Trump argued that Portland's protests qualified as a rebellion, justifying his actions. However, this move didn't sit well with local leaders. Officials from Portland, Oregon, and even California filed a lawsuit challenging the deployment, arguing it overstepped bounds and disrupted normal governance. Judge Immergut, who was appointed by Trump himself, conducted a thorough 3-day trial packed with testimony from federal, state, and local law enforcement officials, plus over 750 exhibits detailing the protests. Her conclusion? There was neither a rebellion nor a danger of a rebellion, and the president wasn't unable with the regular forces to execute the laws of the United States. In other words, the situation on the ground didn't meet the high bar set by Title 10. That said, her ruling does allow the National Guard troops to stay under federal control for at least another 14 days, providing a brief window for potential reassessment. Reactions poured in swiftly. From the administration's side, Assistant Department of Homeland Security Secretary Tricia McLaughlin defended the actions, stating President Trump is using his lawful authority to direct the National Guard to protect federal assets and personnel in Portland following months of violent riots where officers have been assaulted and doxxed by left-wing rioters. The president's lawful actions will make Portland safer. Echoing this, White House spokeswoman Abigail Jackson emphasized the facts haven't changed, amidst ongoing violent riots and lawlessness, that local leaders have refused to step in to quell. President Trump has exercised his lawful authority to protect federal officers and assets. President Trump will not turn a blind eye to the lawlessness plaguing American cities, and we expect to be vindicated by a higher court. On the other side, Oregon Governor Tina Kotek, a Democrat, fired back strongly. She called the ruling a validation of the reality on the streets, saying, "Oregon does not want or need military intervention, and President Trump's attempts to federalize the Guard is a gross abuse of power." Oregon National Guard members have been away from their jobs and families for 38 days. The California National Guard has been here for just over 1 month. Based on this ruling, I am renewing my call to the Trump administration to send all troops home now. This highlights a key controversy. Is protecting federal buildings worth the personal and economic toll on Guard members, many of whom are everyday citizens pulled from their regular lives? This isn't the first time Immergut has weighed in. She previously issued a temporary 16-page ruling on a Sunday before the trial, finding no credible evidence of protests spiraling out of control. She vowed to issue a final order on Friday after reviewing the mountain of evidence. In her latest decision, she noted that the deployments, opposed by Oregon's governor and not requested by the federal officials overseeing the ICE building, exceeded the president's authority. The Trump administration wasted no time. Appealing the ruling to the 9th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals on Monday. The legal back and forth has been intense. Immergut had blocked the deployments twice in early October ahead of the trial, ruling that Trump hadn't met the legal thresholds. She described his portrayal of Portland as war-ravaged, with fires all over the place, as simply untethered to the facts. The 9th Circuit initially paused one of her orders on October 20th, but later vacated that and agreed to rehear the case before an 11-judge panel. For now, the Guard remains federalized, but not deployed under an earlier October order. During the trial, witnesses, including local police and federal officials, shared insights into the nightly protests outside the Portland ICE building. These demonstrations peaked in June when police declared one event a riot, but they typically involved just a couple dozen participants in the weeks before Trump's announcement. This raises another layer of controversy. Were these protests truly a threat justifying military intervention, or were they a form of civil dissent that local law enforcement could have handled without federal troops? Some might argue that federalizing the Guard sends a powerful message against unrest, while others see it as a slippery slope toward militarizing domestic issues. In the end, this ruling underscores the delicate balance between federal and state powers in America. As the case heads to appeals, it could set precedents for future presidents. But what do you think? Should the president have the leeway to deploy troops like this in response to protests? Or does it erode local autonomy? Is this a smart way to protect federal property or an example of overreach that divides communities further? Share your opinions in the comments. Do you agree with the judge, the administration, or perhaps a middle ground? Let's discuss.